Hello everyone, welcome to my Building a Focused Watchlist video. Today we're going to talk about how I build my watch lists using a rule that I've created called the 1-2-3 rule. Before we begin the presentation, I just want to let you know that this presentation is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. So any trades you take using my ideas or my systems are your trades and your trades alone. All right, so this is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about my watchlist system, and this is the overall process that I go through for creating my watchlist. We'll talk about the core tickers that I scan against. We'll talk a little bit about options flow and alerts and how that can be useful. I'll introduce this concept that I use called the work list, which is separate from my watch list. And then we'll talk about how I build a focused watch list with my 1-2-3 rule. And I'll show you an example of what I'm looking at actually for this week. So I love this quote by James Clear from the excellent book Atomic Habits. And if you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good book. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And this is true. Most of the time in pretty much any area of life, your habits are what you sort of revert back to. And those can be good or bad habits. And so we can have the greatest aspirations for trading, which I think we all do. We all want to make money. We all want to try to have no ceiling in terms of how much we can earn on an annual basis. And have life-changing wealth that can help us and help future generations. And so those goals are fine, and we all need them. We need to have something to aspire to work towards. But equally important, if not more important, is making sure that you put in the right processes and have the right discipline, which is effectively process plus discipline is your system. Putting those processes and making sure you have discipline will take you to the next level and give you the ability to achieve your goals. So take this quote to heart. I really think about this one a lot. And I think the more that you focus on building good systems, good habits, and maintaining discipline, the better off and more success you'll likely have with your trading journey. Okay, so this is my watch list system. And I've drawn it up in a diagram form so that you can kind of understand the flow of how I get ideas and take them from, sort of rough ideas all the way to a focused watch list that I can execute against. So my ideas come from three different places. I scan against my core tickers list. I review and analyze options flow using unusual whales. And I have alerts that I get from a number of different folks that I follow on Twitter and on YouTube as well. And that's really what this system is. It's a pipeline. It takes ideas. I perform analysis on those ideas. And then I promote some of those ideas to a focused watch list that I execute against. Let's talk about core tickers and scanners. So, there's a lot of tickers out there, and there's lots of different styles and different methodologies for which ones you want to trade against. There's folks that love to trade against penny stocks. There's folks that only trade, large caps. There's folks that only trade the SPY, which these are all 100% valid strategies, and it's really up to you to decide how you want to trade and what you want to trade. But for me, my core tickers are the indexes, all the different sector ETFs, futures, typically like ES, NQ, commodities, and crypto. And crypto is really just Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's kind of what I look at and scan against. And so those combined with all of the tickers from the S&P 100, which is about 2/3 of the S&P 500's market cap, along with the NASDAQ 100 tickers, and then also other favorites that I've traded over the years or recently that I add to that list. And so what ends up happening is I have about 200 to 300 tickers that are really consistent, important stocks to the market. They make up the bulk of the stock market. I know they're high quality and likely to have high liquidity. So it narrows my field immediately. And I still have the ability to add favorites to it as I encounter them through options flow, through alerts, through scanning. If I find new tickers that are interesting to me, I can always add those to the list, and it will continue to sort of grow. But I like to keep the core list focused because it keeps me focused, and then I start to understand each of these stocks a little bit better and how they move, and I find that to be incredibly valuable. And the types of scanners that I scan with, I'll look for breakouts to the upside or the downside through 52-week high and low scanners. During pre-market or during the day, I will scan for high volume or high relative volume to identify, more liquidity in a particular ticker. And then, at the end of the day, also scanning for high relative volume for the entire day to see kind of where the interest was. Looking at stocks that are in a squeeze. Squeeze is actually my favorite swing trade setup. I really love it. It's a high probability setup, when you're in trend. So that's something that I spend a lot of time on. And in fact, I'll be working on a squeeze indicator video at some point in the near future. Also looking for oversold and overbought tickers. I don't necessarily, dive into like, hey, something's completely overbought. Now it's time to, time to buy some puts or something. I think there's a lot more analysis that needs to go in, but you can find some interesting ideas by sort of combining oversold, overbought signals with additional technical analysis. And then I like to look at the sectors. I'll scan into a particular sector to, if there's a weak sector or the weakest sector, I'll look for the weakest stock in that sector to short. If there's a strong sector and there's the strongest ticker in that sector, I'll look for that ticker to go long on. And then, of course, there's new scanners that I'm building. I have the ATR levels scanners that are still under development. I'm trying to, get those to a point where they'll be really good. But those are the kind of scanners that I'm looking at on a regular basis and scanning, again, against my core tickers. So these are all pointing at my core tickers and just looking at stuff that I'm familiar with and, pulling up potential ideas for me. And as I see things that are interesting from these scanners, I'll just quickly toss them onto my work list. That's the goal. It's, the bottom of the work list is my inbox, and stuff that filters to the top. It rises to the top will eventually make its way onto my watch list. Okay, so option flow and alerts. Options flow is incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. And identifying unusual options activity can yield some really, really good ideas that will have directional conviction and can really help you, have more conviction in a particular trade. And so you can add those ideas to your work list for further analysis. And same thing with alerts. There's a lot of different alert services out there, lots of different Discords, lots of really great Twitter accounts, lots of folks that are fantastic traders that are giving out ideas for free. And so many of these ideas, you can look at, analyze, and add them to your work list if they look interesting. But you got to make sure that you're fully understanding the reasoning, the plan behind the trade before promoting it to the watch list. And so, I'm a big fan of using lots of different ways to find good opportunities. And so definitely these two have, a strong place in my process as well. Okay, so introducing the work list. And so most of my work is done analyzing outside of market hours. The goal during market hours is to execute. And of course, you can search for tickers during market hours, right? If something's slow or everything's in chop, maybe you can spend some time looking for potential opportunities to add to the work list. But most of my work is done analyzing outside of market hours. And so to keep things organized and separate from my watch list, which should be hyper-focused, I have this thing that I call the work list. And the work list is simply a ranked list of tickers that I'm analyzing. That's it. At the top, hopefully my best ideas. At the bottom, new ideas or half-baked ideas, things that I haven't processed yet. And so, I'm continuously adding, analyzing, ranking, removing from this list to keep things fluid for me. If somebody mentions something or I see something, I just quickly toss it onto the work list, and then I can process it later. And I'm constantly working off this list to process. So it gives me a single point where I can always contain ideas that look interesting, and I always can reference it for ideas that look interesting, but it keeps it separate from my execution list, which is my watch list. And so I use this list to promote ideas to my watch list, and we'll talk about how I do that in a second. Okay, so the watch list is separate from the work list, as we just talked about. And my primary goal during the day is to execute. Focus is the most key aspect of execution. I think a lot of people think more is the answer, and less is definitely the answer. Often we spread ourselves too thin in so many different ways, and I think that also carries over to trading. And I think it's important to focus, and to do that, you have to narrow your view. And so the watch list for me is a list of my highest conviction trade ideas that have been promoted from my work list. Typically, they're going to be the same lists, same ideas at the top of my work list. And so to make this list focused, to make this watch list focused, I apply this rule that I came up with, which is the 1-2-3 rule. And so let's talk about that. So the 1-2-3 rule is a simple way that I came up with to pick 6 tickers from your work list that you can have on your watch list. And the idea is simple. You have one market, so the SPX or the SPY, 2 favorites, and 3 of your best ideas from your work list. So the beauty of this system is half of your watch list is going to be super familiar. Hopefully really, really familiar. Hopefully you're trading the market and you're trading your favorite tickers regularly. So you're going to be super in tune with what's going on with those. And you'll understand the price action. You'll understand their how they move, and you'll look for potential opportunities there. And then the other half of your watch list is going to be the best ideas that you've taken from your work list, things that have risen to the top that you have high conviction in. And so this gives you the ability to really focus in and execute, as opposed to worrying about lots of different ideas and then having a hard time executing on them because there's just too many good ones. And so that's it. Here's an example. You can see my watch list for this week is S&P 500, the SPX. Apple, I'm watching Apple because we've got earnings this week. Google, we've got earnings. Amazon, we've got earnings. The Qs and IWM are on that list. So I'm going to watch that closely, and that's my goal for the week. And you can see my work list is primarily right now consisting of FANG stocks. Of course, I've got Costco on there, Twitter because of the recent activity, relative strength. Oxy has been on a tear recently, so I'm looking for, XLE's been sort of hit a top, and I'm looking to potentially go short on energy stocks. So Oxy's been one that's high flying. I'm looking for an opportunity to enter a trade there. Bank stocks have been hammered as well. We had that news recently about mortgages being the number of mortgage originations lowering down. So I'm watching Bank of America, which is of course one of the leaders. And then of course Home Depot also going to be affected by that. So that's on my work list. And more will be added to this list. But right now I'm focused on high quality, high liquidity stocks as we navigate this next couple weeks. And that's it. That's how I build a focus watch list. I hope you found this useful. If you like this video, drop a like. If you have questions, drop some comments. And please subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more about trading. And hit that notification icon if you want to be alerted about new videos that I drop. Thanks so much.